Okay, so my name is Emily Payne. I'm really excited to be here. Just to avoid any distraction, yes, I am Canadian. Scott called me out on it after I said like 5 words. So apparently you can tell by my accent that I'm Canadian, so hopefully it won't distract you too much. But like I said, I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited for a couple different reasons. One, I really love to geek out about all things enablement, so I'll probably be picking everyone's brain during breaks and lunches. And also I love to teach people cool things. I think that's why we're all in enablement, because we love to teach people. So hopefully in the next 30 minutes, I can accomplish both. We can all geek out a little bit, and we can all learn something. But before I dive into the good stuff, I want to tell you guys a story. So I was recently given the opportunity to teach at a local college up in Ontario, Canada, where I'm from. And I was set to teach an intro to sales course, part of the business program at the college. And the cool thing was, it was mainly going to be international students. So I thought, this is going to be great. I get to interact with people from all over the world, I get to teach them sales, and maybe I can influence them in their career to come. So I was pretty pumped about it. But then, in my first class, the energy was pretty low. I was clearly the only one that was excited to be there. And I figured, okay, I have to do something. I gotta get people up out of their seats. I gotta make people entertained. So, I did a facilitation trick that we do at Shopify a lot. I decided we were gonna have a rock, paper, scissors competition. So basically what you do is you pair everybody up, everyone plays rock, paper, scissors, and whoever loses becomes the winner's cheerleader in the next round. And then eventually you get down to half the room cheering for one finalist and the other half of the room cheering for the second finalist. So I explained the game to everybody, tell them all to start playing, and guess what happened? Nothing. Nobody started to play. And then I realized, this is mainly international students. Nobody knows how to play rock, paper, scissors. And it made me think, if I want people to do something complex, I have to teach them the basics first. So as we all know in this room, sales can be pretty complex. There's a lot of nuances that go into sales. So how do you get inexperienced sales reps to do the complex? This was the question we asked ourselves at Shopify. So at Shopify, our goal is to make commerce better for everyone. And that goal was expanding, and it was rapidly growing. So we needed sales reps to come in and be able to help us reach our goals. But we wanted to do things a little bit differently. We didn't want experienced sales reps to come in and have a preconceived notion about how we should be selling our platform. We wanted to really challenge the way that other organizations had made their sales structure. So we took advantage of the 3 post-secondary schools that were located in Waterloo, the city where our enterprise office is located, and we started hiring new grads, which made us ask the question, how do we get inexperienced sales reps to do the complex? Well, you teach them the basics, and that's what we did with Sales Academy. Sales Academy was an internal education program that was designed to inspire new grads to choose sales as a career. And then we taught them the skills and the behaviors needed, along with real-world experience, in order to join our sales team as well-rounded, high-functioning reps. So today, I'm going to teach you how to create your own Sales Academy program back in your office. We're going to go through how to design and structure your program, how to recruit the right people into the program, how to make sure that they have the right behaviors and are modeling the things that you want them to. And then I'll talk a little bit about the lessons that we learned when we were implementing this program. I'll probably have some time at the end for some questions, but if anything comes up along the way, feel free to put up your hand and we can have a discussion about it. Okay? So let's start with the design and structure, and I'll start with timeline. So altogether, our Sales Academy program was 6 months long, and it was divided into 3 2-month parts. So the first 2 months were traditional classroom-based learning. The next 2 months consisted of a rotational period where all the participants got to shadow different roles within the organization. This gave them a lot of business acumen. And then the final 2 months were real hands-on experience. We immersed our participants into the sales role. They got to own sales, full sales cycle deals, and then they got one-to-one mentorship from some of our senior, most successful reps. For the cohort model, we decided on a group of 6, and we did this for a couple different reasons. Even-numbered groups are just easier to train. You can pair them up and they're a little bit easier to do group work with. And then also we had a bit of a hypothesis. So we wanted all 6 of them by the end of the program to join the sales team. In no way did I stand up in front of the room on the first day and say, there's 6 people here and only one of you are going to make it to the end. That's not what we wanted to do. We wanted all 6 of them to join the sales team. But our hypothesis was maybe 4 of them would join at the end. Maybe 1 would find another opportunity within Shopify that excited them a little bit more. And maybe 1 would opt out. They wouldn't make it to the end of the program, or we wouldn't offer them a job at the end. We wanted to make sure that we built in the flexibility that people could say, you know what, sales isn't for me. We found a lot that when we were hiring people with not too much experience, they would get into sales, and after 6 months, they would say, this is not what I thought it would be, and I'm out. That's really expensive. So we wanted to do this in a way where people had the opportunity to say, I want to try something else. And when it came to compensation, how we modeled it was we ended up going with everyone having a contract position for the 6 months. We didn't hire them full time. We gave them a contract and said at the end of the 6 months, you may be offered a full-time role. We did pay them though. We gave them an hourly wage similar to what we would pay an intern. And then we gave them the opportunity to earn more money along the way. We did different competitions. And I'll explain a little bit more about the competitions in a few minutes. And throughout the 6 months, we gave them a ton of different learning opportunities. We focused on things like value selling, fundamental sales skills, and product knowledge. And our product knowledge training was very similar to what Scott was referring to. We didn't tell them the ins and outs of the product and make them product experts. That's what we have solutions engineers for. But we made sure they understand which personas to sell which aspects of the product to. But because we were hiring new grads, we knew that we couldn't just make them great sales reps. We had to make them good employees. So we had to teach them professional development skills as well. Things like goal setting and networking and how to manage their time properly. For a lot of them, this was their first full-time role. So we wanted to make sure that they were well-rounded team members. But the nuts and bolts of your program can only get you so far. It's really the people that make the difference in a program like this. So let's talk about how you can recruit people. So I touched a little bit on why we decided to go with new grads versus experienced. But again, we really wanted to challenge the structure, the traditional structure of sales. We wanted people to come in that were eager and passionate and could look at sales in a new light. We also knew that we wanted to not only hire people that knew sales was the career for them, but we wanted to inspire people to choose sales as a career who otherwise hadn't thought about it. We wanted to challenge the way people thought about sales. So we knew that we had to become thought leaders in our community. So like I said, we have 3 post-secondary schools, 2 universities and 1 college. And what we did was we started to become guest lecturers. We went to every business and sales program we could find, and we even consulted on some of the professors' curriculum. So we made sure that even if they didn't go through our program, the education could get better for them and the training could get better so we could still have a better funnel of candidates coming out of school. We also sat as judges and mentors on different sales and business competitions. And we made sure to invest in women in tech events as well, because we really wanted to encourage more females to choose sales as a career. And we tried to make the application process unique as well. So during the process, it was a mandatory requirement that all candidates had to submit a 1-minute pitch video. They could choose a topic or an item, whatever they wanted, and just sell us on the value of it. This let us see them a little bit in action, and also let us see if people really understood what value selling was. And if they didn't, could they do a little bit of research and figure it out? And then also during the interview process, we had some of our top sales reps participate. They ran a lot of the interviews, which allowed our candidates to interact with people who had the job that they were aspiring to have. And we also had the ability with our sales reps to evaluate things like culture fit. And do these people have a passion for sales or a passion for learning? But when you have the right people in the program, you want to make sure that they're doing the right behaviors. So we'll talk a little bit about incentivizing those. During the 6-month Sales Academy program, we made sure to incentivize learning, not just winning. Remember, I'm saying that we're trying to challenge the traditional way of doing sales. So it wasn't just about closing deals. It was about how could they learn and how could they apply their knowledge. That's what we wanted to reward. So we would give prizes for things like best presentation or most successful role play, or best grade on a quiz. So ways that they could prove that they were actually implementing their knowledge, that's what we rewarded them with. And then we also wanted to make sure that we had a balance between individual rewards versus team rewards. We wanted to make sure we gave everybody the opportunity to show that they could be a part of a team rather than just win individually. So for example, at the end of the first 2-month section, all the participants had to take a written exam to make sure that they had all the basic knowledge that we wanted them to have. And what we did was we gave a reward to the group if every single one of them got a certain grade. So this incentivized them to actually prepare as a team and make sure everyone was going to get a good grade versus everyone preparing individually. We also made sure to reward with opportunity, not just money. We wanted our candidates to understand the value of new opportunities and the value of doing something different, not just monetary. So we did things like we gave them the opportunity to visit another office for a week and interact with teams that they otherwise wouldn't have met. Or we gave people one-on-one access to our Shopify executives, an opportunity that a lot of people in the organization didn't get. And of course, we saw a lot of success in the program, but we also learned a lot. There was a couple bumps along the way and a couple things we realized towards the end of the 6 months that we should have implemented at the beginning. So I'm going to go through a couple of the lessons that we learned. Firstly, we learned very early on that we needed org-wide commitment for a program like this to be successful. We needed all the leaders in the organization to understand the value of Sales Academy, so they would commit resources to it, and they would commit people to participate in that shadowing aspect. We also realized towards the end of the 6 months that we really didn't have enough sales leadership buy-in. We didn't get to the point that we wanted to. So we realized that we should have given more opportunity for our sales managers to really understand what the Sales Academy participants were learning and how they were preparing for a role in sales. After all, it was our managers that were hiring out of this program. So it would have been a much smoother transition if we could have had them see really what they were working on and see them in action a little bit more. I think they would have felt more confident in hiring some of them. We also ran into a few speed bumps with the full-time versus contract opportunity. So like I mentioned, we gave everybody a 6-month contract, but it ended up being much more of a distraction than we thought it would. So we found that the participants were actually becoming quite panicked at the thought that they didn't have a 100% guarantee they were going to get a job at the end of this program. And even when we got to the midway point, they were much more focused on the security of a full-time offer than we thought that they would be. So they weren't as focused on the learning aspects of it as we would have liked them to be. And we also learned a lot about what was out of our control in the organization. With Shopify, the business is growing so quickly that by the time our participants were coming to the end of the 6-month program, we were already reevaluating whether or not hiring new grads was the right option for us. Even our expectations of our current sales reps were changing so quickly that the content we had in Sales Academy quickly became outdated in just a matter of months. So it could still be a functional program. We just had to be really aware that it was going to rapidly change every cohort. But we learned a lot. We applied all the knowledge to future programs. We even started sponsoring other local tech companies to do Sales Academy programs like this and taught them how to do it. And now hopefully all of you can learn a little bit about it. But this was our original Sales Academy cohort. That's me right in the middle there. And they were a group of young, eager, passionate individuals who, above all else, really wanted to learn. So with our focus on the basic fundamental skills and giving them real-world experience, we were able to train our next generation of sales reps who are still making an impact today. Thanks. And I've got some time for questions if anybody has any about the program or implementing it yourself or different things that we train people on. Yep.
So you mentioned how the contract position was a distraction.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were making it full-time, so tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure.
I've seen other programs like that, and you're exactly right, about halfway through, very concerned that you're going to have a job in another 2 months.
Yeah, so we gave them, and we were very clear at the beginning that they would have this 6-month contract with the opportunity to get full-time at the end. But we initially thought that we wouldn't have to have those full-time conversations until much later on in the program. But like I mentioned, about halfway through, everyone was really eager to get that full-time offer, which is understandable. I mean, people want to know if they're going to have a job in the next 3 months, right? So we learned that we needed to work much more closely with leadership in order to get their commitment to offer people full-time jobs much earlier on. Now, one of the reasons why we had the contract option was because we wanted to make it a little bit easier for ourselves to basically terminate people if they weren't working out in the program. And I think that was just on our part a selfish decision. If I was running it again, I would just make everybody full-time right off the bat. And then if I had to let someone go at the end of the 6 months, I would have to let them go. But it was more of a decision to make it easier for us from an administrative standpoint versus them. So I think I would have just made them full-time from the get-go. Yes.
So the first 2 months was classroom training. Were you in the classroom with them for 2 months? And how did you decide on the curriculum?
Yes, so I was in the classroom, but we also had some of our senior sales reps come in and teach certain topics. Or we had people, if it was more of a technical lesson, I would have a solutions engineer come in and teach it. But majority of it, I was in the room teaching them. And we did it, the format was we would have lecture styles, and then we also had workshop styles. So lecture would be I was delivering content to them, answering a few questions along the way, and then the workshop a couple days later would be they would have to go out and do an activity that showed they could apply the knowledge and then come back in and share or do a presentation or a role play of some kind. And the second part was how did we come up with the curriculum, right? So we worked backwards a little bit. So we understood what our ideal sales rep looked like, what competencies they need, what skills they needed, and then we just assumed that people coming in knew none of it, which was pretty accurate. So we took away the really high level ideas and made that our curriculum, and then tried to pick out which parts they needed to learn up front versus which parts they could learn on the job. So we wanted to make sure before the last 2 months of the program where they were actually interacting with merchants, did they have the baseline knowledge to get through a conversation? And then what things would they learn on the fly while they were on the phone or through mentorship?
So at the end of the 6 months, did you have them interview for positions with managers, or did you already have outlined what positions were going to be available?
So we had headcount available, so we knew that we were kind of allotting the 6 headcount to slot these people into. We didn't do like traditional interviews, but we did I had to go in and kind of pitch the value of these people to the hiring managers and make sure that they understood what their skills were, what they were good at, what were still some development opportunities for them. And then the sales manager had to basically agree to hire them. And they would sit down and have some coffee chats and make sure that they had a good fit as well, but it wasn't a formal interview process. And I saw a question up here. Yep. It was the same one? Okay.
So are you running it again? Is it every 6 months now?
So the goal was to do it every 6 months. But like I said from some of our lessons learned, it turned out not to be the exact right fit for our business where we were because we were changing so quickly. So what we did was we took all the content, we put it into onboarding. So anyone coming in who didn't have as much experience as we wanted could still take advantage of all the awesome content that we created. And we made it more of like a self-drive model. So if someone did come in, with more experience, they didn't have to go through that training. And if someone came in with less experience, they could go through it themselves. And we also had from that time, we've had other sales teams in Shopify in general pop up because we've just been growing our solution. So right now we have a new retail team that just started a sales group, and they're hiring new grads. So we basically gave them all of our content and said, here you go, you can run a sales academy program yourself. So it basically became like a package that we could just implement wherever we needed in the organization. But it's not so much as a reoccurring program for my part of the business as I would have liked.
Use the mic.
When interviewing some of these new grads, was there any specific questions you asked to kind of flush away who was really wanting to get into sales and people who were just saying that they wanted to get into sales for the sake of getting a job?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So at that point, I was looking for someone who really just wanted to learn and someone who was eager to get their feet wet and who had even a slight interest in sales. I didn't hire people who were only 100% I'm going to be in sales. I wanted people with a bunch of different experience, with a bunch of different backgrounds, so everyone would look at sales a little bit differently. Because like I mentioned, we were just kind of experimenting with how we were selling our platform at that point. So I wasn't too concerned over someone who just wanted a job versus someone who was passionate about sales. But I did want someone who had the qualities of a great sales rep. So we asked a lot of questions about teamwork and a lot of questions about them getting out of their comfort zone and being a people person. So like, did they ever participate in competitions at school? Did they ever lead groups? Were they ever on a sports team? So things like that we asked about.
Going back to what you were talking about, taking the academy and putting it into your
Other parts of the business, yeah.
How is that working? I mean, you talked about self-drive, self-driving. How is that working as opposed to more of the instructor-led actual activity, participating in the activity?
Yeah, it's working well. It's definitely, it doesn't take as long because they're not in the classroom learning for 2 months up front. But it does take a different kind of person who is very eager and who's very aware of their gaps because, like I said, it's self-drive. So it also takes a lot of commitment from the manager to monitor them along the way and make sure that they are learning what they're supposed to. But a lot of our managers use all the Sales Academy content as a bit of a resource library. So if they are finding that even if they've got an experienced team, if there is a skill that people are struggling with, they can just go back and use the lecture that I did in Sales Academy or use the workshop to upskill their own team. Any other questions? No? Well, then that's it for me. Thanks, guys.